They say one of the best ways to further your career and get more impact in your organizations is by learning from people who have done it before. So people who are further ahead in the things that you want to do. For that, we at Data Futurology put together conferences to bring people together to have the conversations that matter to you with key leaders from around the country. Our next conference is called Ops World. It focuses on building and deploying data products and ML products. This is happening in Melbourne on the 24th and 25th of October. We are having multiple industry use cases of data products and ML products. We have strategies on how to build those. And additionally, we have lots of networking opportunities for you to spend time with CIOs, CDOs, CDAOs who are coming to join us and present. Hope to see you there. Click below for tickets.
I'd like to say a big thank you to our sponsors, Talent Insights. Talent Insights are Australia's leading specialist data recruitment business. With offices in Sydney, Melbourne, and Brisbane, they're experts at providing recruitment strategy and building data teams for clients across industries Australia-wide. They provide recruitment solutions for all roles across the data lifecycle, including data engineering, data science, advanced analytics, customer and marketing insights, business intelligence, data product managers, and data governance. They're skilled at finding the best permanent and contract hires for your business needs, as well as statement of work, project focus, data resources. At Talent Insights, relationships matter most. I can say from first-hand experience, Talent Insights are fantastic to work with. Whether you're a business leader within an HR network or a specialist data candidate, Talent Insights should be the first company you turn to for all your data recruitment needs. Find them at talentinsights.com.au.
Hi, this is Felipe Flores. Welcome to Data Futurology. Today, we're going to talk about generative AI in recruitment, both from a people perspective and a tech perspective. And for that, I couldn't have asked for any better guests. I've got Grant Wright. He is the PM of Marketplace and AI products at Seek. Great to see you, Grant.
Good to see you, Felipe.
Mate, too good. Thanks for making the time. And I've got James Eichhorn. He's the principal consultant for data engineering, machine learning, data science at Talent Insights Group. Jimmy, thanks for making the time. How are you going?
Good, thank you. Thanks for having me along.
Thank you both. So I'll ask you both to give us a quick intro, and then we can jump into Gen AI in recruitment. Jimmy, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. So I work for a business called Talent Insights. We're in Sydney and Victoria. We specialize in recruiting and data and analytics. So my area of expertise, as you mentioned, is data engineering, technical data science roles, and machine learning.
Yeah, nice. And you were saying that there's been a lot of interest in the MLOps space recently in the data engineering. Is that the areas that you're seeing have a lot of interest and a lot of demand from the market?
Definitely, yeah. There's still a really big requirement to find people that have experience of productionalizing models and having that really strong engineering skill set. So that's probably been a big focus in Victoria for the last 12 months or so.
Yeah, I love it. And with Data Futurology, we have our our Ops World conference coming up in Melbourne at the end of October, so October 24th, 25th. And it's focused on data products and ML products. So it aligns well with where the market's at. And Grant, from your side, mate, give us a bit of an intro.
Yeah, so I'm lucky to head up AI products and analytics at Seek. So Seek's a global employment marketplace. Many in Australia and New Zealand will be familiar with that brand as the leading place to find a job in Australia and New Zealand. But some may not be aware of our presence in Asia Pacific and the Americas. So through the JobStreet, JobsDB, OCC, and Catho brands, we've also got leading positions right across Asia Pacific, Mexico, and Brazil. So my team's job is to use data and AI to make it easier to find the best job and the best talent on Seek globally.
Globally, that's amazing. Yeah, and the acquisitions that Seek has done over the years and overseas, just I've given you guys such broad, data sets and information, and where you can apply your AI magic to help people find the best jobs. So that's amazing, mate. So as a continuation of that, I might ask you, how long has Seek been using AI in production? What is an overview of the journey so far? What does that look like?
Yeah, so Seek's been using AI. I've been in Seek about 7 years. Seek's probably been using AI in anger in the marketplace for about 10. So we started with a pretty small team building recommendations algorithms and a few prediction models. I joined the team about 6 years ago with the goal of kind of making a global team to do things once globally. So we've been on a pretty strong growth trajectory there. We started with a couple of people. We grew to a data science team of about 20. Now we're in the hundreds with data scientists, product managers, engineers, and platform teams. So building about 75 services across 25 countries, if you include all our services, in about 5 languages. So it's been quite a journey.
Right, that is incredible. Yeah, so many different areas of application. So what are some of the examples that you can share about AI products in Seek?
Yeah, we use AI almost behind everything you use on the Seek website. So everything from helping you predict your search query through autocomplete, right through to personalized recommendations being pushed to your mobile. Things that people wouldn't necessarily see day to day as a candidate searching the site. So also recommending candidates through your Seek profile to hirers when they post a job ad, understanding and extracting skills and trying to understand career paths so we can open up new opportunities and explain those to candidates and hirers. And also pricing and performance management of our products to make sure we're allowing hirers to get the performance they need, but also making sure we're always putting the most relevant thing in front of the candidate.
Right, that's brilliant. And how does your team, what's the organization, or I guess the structure of the team, and how do you operate to get the maximum business impact?
Yeah, that's something we think a lot. So I'm not a data scientist. My background is kind of strategy and operations with an analytics bent. And the reason I think my role exists is because organizing highly capable technical teams around customer problems and giving them the context to go and solve it's just so critical for what we do. So we have platform teams which do support and excellence. So things like experimentation and data engineering to provide support to all our teams. And then we organize into kind of customer domain teams, which focus around a customer problem like search, for example, job search. And those teams have AI product, data science, and engineering in them. So they're a cross-functional team with slightly messy boundaries because we think the innovation happens between those 3 things. And then we push pretty hard on having a clear product ambition and understanding what the real customer problem is we're trying to solve, and a theory on how data and AI can unlock a constraint and make that dramatically better. And that's what the team chase. And then they have a fair bit of freedom to then come up with OKRs underneath that align to that goal and tell us how they're going to solve the problem.
That's awesome. That is great. And then jumping more into the LLMs and Gen AI topic. First, from a Seek perspective, have you guys been looking at that space before the hype or after ChatGPT came up? What has been your development in that area?
Yeah, it's a great question. Obviously, what a time to be alive in this space, and particularly jobs are so unstructured and unbounded and complex. Humans can't often articulate what they want and agree on what good looks like. So unstructured text has always been a big challenge for us, and so we have invested in what we thought were LLMs at the time. So we did a lot of work 2-3 years ago around BERT models and fine-tuning BERT models. So we have a Gilberta model, as we call it, which is fine-tuned to our space. So we've been working with what I would now call language models rather than large language models for quite a few years now, building things like models to predict how likely you are to be shortlisted based on your CV and profile in a particular job. So we've been investing in the space. We actually carved out quite a bit of budget to invest in fine-tuning BERT models and similar models a few years ago. So I think we were certainly in the space and understanding large language models before ChatGPT launched and all the hype really kicked off. But then from there, everything's changed again. So,
man, so much, and across everything. Jimmy, I'll pass it to you in terms of how are you seeing the adoption of Gen AI from the market perspective in terms of both conversations that you're having, what companies are looking for or thinking about discussing, because I think that there's a fair bit of brainstorming around this in terms of how to use it, and then we can jump into the recruitment applications. But first, from the market perspective, how are you seeing generative AI?
It's clearly on everyone is talking about it at every event that I go to, every conversation that I'm having with people. They're constantly talking about, what businesses are using it, how quickly is it being adopted. I think a lot of companies are sort of at the very, very entry point of being able to use the services. Not too many of them actually have too many large language models that they're using. Obviously, there's a few exceptions, but generally in the market, everybody sort of wants to be touching on it. I'm speaking to people that aren't in tech, accountants that are talking to me about, I've been using it for this and that, and everyone's sort of quite amazed with just the basics of it, really. I think what's quite interesting is, speaking with engineers and data scientists, is they're wondering how is it going to impact their jobs. What can they be doing to make sure that they can sort of skill up for being able to go into that area. What people are noticing is that it's been really, really effective for a lot of the mundane tasks and sort of administrative work. But that's kind of just really, really touching on the basics of it just right now. But yeah, I think kind of what I'm hearing and speaking to people about is, we're looking to bring in, whether it's a prompt engineer or whatever it is, can we bring these people into our business? But maybe the education around talking to people about how much actual experience that you can have that's going to apply to what is pretty new technology in the Australian sector is going to be really important. You can't be advertising, we're looking for someone that has, 5 years experience with generative AI or anything like that, because it hasn't really commercially been possible in the market just yet.
Exactly. And it's important for organizations to be pragmatic or maybe realistic about how what they're looking for. Mate, I completely agree. And how do you see the impact of Gen AI for recruitment, Jimmy?
So it's interesting. I speak to people and they're using generative AI for writing advertisements. The amount of people that are using it to put together their CV, to apply for X amount of jobs, and sort of spamming the market with those kind of somewhat very formulated CVs. But I think probably the importance in the people and the human element has never been as critical as it is now. I think from a recruiter's perspective, moving away from transactional recruiting, understanding the people that we're meeting with, the skills that they have that are going to be able to apply for particular jobs are obviously on a piece of paper are really important, but, doing your due diligence, getting to understand, various businesses that people have been in and how that's going to apply for whatever environments they're looking for. That's not something that I've seen yet that can be figured out by Gen AI.
Yeah, definitely not. And that's one of the reasons I really like as the hiring manager, it's one of the reasons that I really like Talent Insights, that you guys focus on the culture of the organization and focus on the culture fit of the candidate and how those are aligned. Also on the purpose of the organization and what is interesting for the candidate, because I think that tying to the purpose of the organization, tying roles to their purpose gives a lot more longevity, higher tenure, and overall better satisfaction. And that's a difficult matchmaking to do, but yeah, one that you guys definitely do really well.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I guess sort of active listening and making sure that you're sort of paying attention to what are the needs of someone, whether it's now or X amount of years in the future, is going to be really critical. But then obviously that applies to the right kind of environments. As you said, that cultural fit is so important, and it kind of typically guarantees a much longer tenure in a business as well. Yeah,
no, that's ace. And Grant, from your side, how are you guys thinking about the applications of Gen AI from Seek's perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of what James just said resonates with me. There's certain elements that can be automated or co-piloted with this technology, and where that is possible, we see that as our role. But we still very much agree that recruitment will remain a human-centric business. So I think James and I talk a bit about the opportunities to work together on this type of stuff. But from a Seek perspective, if I zoom out, we kind of think about it in three things. There's like the core information problems of an AI business that are, like search recommendations. What job do I show you now in this channel based on what information I have? That's mostly what my team focuses on, and there's a whole lot of applications there. There's also then the kind of UX experience side that you see and feel through the experience on the site. And then there's, and as James mentioned, the back office, the input costs, the accounting, finance, HR use cases that organizations need to think about as well. So on the first one, we're thinking about, well, what is the customer problem? What's the job that needs to be done in recruitment, and how can this technology help? And there's all the obvious things around, I can help you write a CV better, but as James mentions, that then reduces a whole lot of signal in the market. If you're taking a tiny bit of information and generating a heap of text, everything starts to look the same. And our models will decay over time if we let that happen. So trying to think smarter about how do we increase the amount of information in the market? How does this allow you to express more intent in your own words and have us understand that? How can we leverage things like company reviews to answer the first stage questions on culture fit, so that then we can give James, the short list of candidates that he can really invest in and do the human touch. So from an information problem, we think the technology unlocks a whole lot in terms of natural language understanding and understanding text, which is huge in our space. I think on the experience side, there's really interesting things like writing CVs and other things that we need to think smart about. As a centralized AI team, working with other product and UX teams, we don't think we're really, we shouldn't be the bottleneck there. So we're thinking more about being a practice that can support teams to leverage off-the-shelf services for some of these things and really unlock and democratize AI across the organization, which is we always had that in our plan, but now feels like the time. And then on the input costs, back office piece, we get a lot of requests from HR, finance, other groups, but my personal view at the moment is that will largely be well solved by vendors, and the role we can play there is to support people to make the right decision, make sure they're using AI responsibly through our responsible AI team, and largely let the vendors play in that space.
Right, that's great. That is great. So leveraging, I love so many parts of the answer. But can you tell us more about the internal product focus around creating AI as a platform or the product to enable across the business? What are what are some of the either processes or decisions that go behind enabling that for the organization?
Yeah, I think partly it's a question of knowing where to go and who to ask as to how do I start here. There's an element of setting up safe environments with the right infrastructure for our product and engineering teams to, operate in a way where they're not going to send data outside Seek, which we never do, but we want to make that as easy as possible to make the right call and access the infrastructure, choose the right algorithm, and get going. So there's a whole lot of just, where do I start? How do I make it easy for a developer to solve this problem in a way that's safe and fit for purpose? There's also quite important strategic and responsible AI guidance. So as I say, we could write a job ad, we could produce a product to use ChatGPT to write a job ad for someone, but that's probably not going to be good for the marketplace long term. So are we thinking about how do we add signal, not take it away? Where do we take away friction and where do we add friction? So just helping with data literacy and understanding across the org. And that's both in sort of how do we think about data products and generating data for future use cases, and how do we use AI responsibly? So there's a big education piece and quite a lot of just admin support, vendor or platform choice and infrastructure.
Yeah, that's excellent. And thanks, Wright. And Jimmy, what do you think about that signal and versus noise argument in terms of with generative AI, they can be so much more content or, job ads that can be created through that. do you see it as that having a potential risk of watering down the information that then people can latch onto, or do you see it as beneficial from a recruiting perspective? What are your views?
I think there's benefits and negatives. But yeah, I think you're definitely right around sort of watering down the actual information. I think everything can kind of look the same. Maybe a lot of the things that are really important kind of get missed generally with those kind of job ads or CVs. But, in terms of being able to structure things and be able to offer sort of an initial kind of almost like a template is really, really valuable. But it's the smaller or the finer details that are going to be really, really critical. And, from what I can see, often get missed. Everything is quite sort of very same.
Right. Yeah. Because it seems like what can come out of the models is kind of maybe average or better, slightly better than average across the board. But if somebody's an expert in an area, they're going to be doing better.
Yeah.
So in our case, we would have technical expertise, but maybe not writing expertise, but blending the two. So it's not blending the two, I think, is a key. So it's not only the outputs from the models that are being shared or submitted, because then you are watering it down and having kind of like a B grade, a level is what you're putting out to the world. Well, you can do a little better with your knowledge, but I can understand that from a writing perspective, you can get a huge boost by leveraging the technology. So yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think? I think there's kind of like working better together.
It's super interesting, right? It's a little bit like, because I look at, when I first look at this, I used to recruit for management consulting, and the cover letter was a really great signal, right? Can someone write a clear, concise cover letter? That's kind of a solved problem now. And you look at that on first principles and say, oh, that's a signal in the market that's gone. But it's a little bit like the education debate. If what you're testing for is now a solved problem with this technology, are you really testing for the right thing? And is that a skill that's required anymore? So I think that's an interesting kind of behavioral acceptance piece that we'll have to go through, and like in multiple sectors. And some of it may be generational. Like we talked about the other day, self-driving cars, and we look at a self-driving car and think, I would never let that take that control. Whereas our kids would probably look at it and think, there's no way I would touch anything here. It could kill me. So I think some of these behavioral trends, not just technology trends, will be really interesting. And the other one in this space, I think, is trust. So we're using Gen AI. I think it's super powerful in summarization, and there's also risks there. But when you're generating content, how do you build trust?
Yeah, because there's multiple issues there around hallucinations, reliability, trustworthiness. There's been a lot of discussions of different approaches and architectures on how to be able to limit that or improve upon that. And particularly as companies want to use Gen AI within their products, using their internal data. So some of the approaches that I've seen is people using vector databases to consolidate their embeddings of their documents, and then they're feeding that through Gen AI when there's a related question, and providing information only from the documents that is going in to Gen AI with the question, to kind of like try to limit the amount of information that Gen AI can draw upon for its answers. But I think it's going to continue to be a challenge for a little bit longer, and then but having better solutions in that, and then having better infrastructure to keep the company's data secure, and still being able to leverage models like that, then there's going to be kind of like the next wave of explosions where organizations are going to feel much more comfortable adopting the technology internally and for their customers. And I don't know, I'm generally too much of an optimist and get excited too early, but I definitely see that as a bit of a game changer. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think you're in good company in the optimist phase. I think it's like, and the encouraging thing is the improvements we're seeing around some of these risks as new models come out. And we can talk about the challenge of keeping pace with just what's happening in the model space. But a lot of the improvements are actually around some of these risks, which is really encouraging. And one of the challenges with vector recall, which we think is really interesting, opportunity, and it has a lot of architectural implications, but you can always return something, right? Whereas more traditional information retrieval tends to have a cap. Vector recall, you've got to choose a cutoff point, or you could return anything, and that can return if you have bad input and you're always returning something. That's a real risk. So something we're thinking about, and what you described in terms of limiting the inputs that it can actually return is one interesting solution there. Yeah, I share your optimism. I think these problems will get solved. And I think, like anything with new technology, risks emerge, and then we use the technology to solve those risks, and everyone's better off. So I think now's the time to keep pushing, not to back off.
I love it. So true. So true. And I was thinking we can dive a little bit into the educational piece that's required around Gen AI and the adoption. Maybe I'll ask you, Jimmy, first, in terms of what do you see people are, how your discussions in the market, how are people thinking about it and approaching the educating the either business stakeholders or the enterprise around Gen AI uses and risks? What type of discussions are you hearing from the market?
I think is what Grant had mentioned earlier around sort of literacy and understanding the risks and the benefits is super important. I think so many businesses are just kind of touching on it right now. Everyone wants to be implementing it. Not a heap of companies are necessarily got a lot of control over people using generative AI across various teams. So that's probably something that everyone's kind of talking about, is what can we be doing to make sure that everything is going to sort of fit under the one sort of security banner that we have, and how can we make sure that everyone is kind of using it appropriately. And then, touching on things like bias and so forth as well. It's definitely a hot topic, but not everyone kind of has the answer just yet.
Yeah, exactly. Especially when it comes to the generative AI, it's such a tough question, such a tough problem space. Grant, from your perspective, how are you guys thinking about the education behind or to support the adoption?
Yeah, it's really interesting, and it differs by audience, right? So if you go back to peak ChatGPT height in sort of Jan, Feb, what I found, and I don't know if it resonates with others listening, but a lot of executive stakeholders and people around the business were exploring ChatGPT and got really excited about what it could produce. And a lot of the data scientists were like, this technology's been around for years. This is just normies catching up, because now they've got an interface and they can understand it. And I found myself doing that classic kind of leader lean against the weight in the canoe, where you're like trying to educate the execs and business stakeholders that nothing's as good or as bad as it seems, and we need to think about this methodically, while trying to kind of encourage our internal teams to really spin up some innovation groups and test this out, because it did look really interesting. And then on the risks challenge, you've got this, what is a complex space to help people understand ethical risks and use cases and trade-offs, and that was hard enough in a data science team. Now you've got to educate the whole organization. And I actually worry more about when you're not on the front foot with this. Yes, there's an opportunity you can cause some harm early on, and you've definitely got to keep an eye on that. But actually, the bigger long-term risk is people see the risks, they don't fully understand them, and so they lock you down, and you never unlock the impact of it. So if you can't get on the front foot as some of these risks start to emerge, and some of the technology isn't paying off in the short term as much as people thought it would, if you don't have a clear strategy as to how you're going to deliver long-term value and how you're going to manage risk, I think we'll start to see organizations kind of clamping down a bit in response to that risk. And so now's the time to get your investment case right and tell the story for the long term, because we probably will see a bit of a dip in productivity and delivery once the quick wins are over, and also how you're going to manage risk as some of this emerges.
Right. So true. So true. Yeah, I think it is the time to set up some good foundations so you can leverage it as an organization instead of having kind of like the walls come down and for it to go in the vault, essentially, Gen AI perspective. And I'll ask you both, and maybe I'll ask you, Grant, first. Where do you, looking into the future, if we think about, say, 5 years, what would you like to see come out in your space as a result of generative AI?
Oh, it's such a rough question, Felipe. But in our space, if you talk about Seek specifically, I feel like the more you get into jobs, the more complex and hard and unbounded you realize it is, which is what makes it such a fascinating space to work in, particularly in data. But traditionally, they've been like job search is still quite anchored on the role title and experience, as we talked about before, which in a fast changing world, and even just for people's careers, is not great. And it's also been pretty one way, set and forget. So I write my CV, I give you a job search query, and then that's all I tell you. When James is dealing with someone, he'll have a much more two-way ongoing conversation. He'll probably float in some candidates to see what resonates. So I think getting, from an online digital perspective, getting much more two-way communication and rich context, and trying to go beyond the role title to unlock skills and capabilities and culture to find the right fit. That's really exciting because that unlocks career paths that don't really exist today. And so a tangible example of that, at Seek, we hire a lot of product managers from management consulting backgrounds, right? And we find they transition really well. That's not necessarily a common pathway in the industry, right? But those things exist. It's not that these movements never happen. They're just not super common. And so if we can look into the tail and try and unlock some of those, there's huge value there. And I think this technology allows us to do that. And the benefits to people's careers and the benefits to the economy are massive.
So true. So true. I saw a stat the other day that the world GDP is expected to increase 7% through the adoption of AI, including Gen AI within that. Over the next decade, I believe. So there's definitely a lot of upside from that. Jimmy, from your side, how would you like to? What's the world you would like to see as a result of adoption of generative AI in your space?
The world that I would like to see from a recruitment perspective is, as I mentioned earlier, sort of as it is now and kind of going forward, making a lot of the mundane tasks quite sort of automated. But aside from that, I don't know how it's going to impact things around what I spoke about with the people or the human element going forward, but being able to sort of assist in terms of helping people learn, create new jobs, that kind of stuff is going to be awesome from what's going to come from it. As Grant mentioned, new career pathways, all sorts of opportunities that way. But I still think what's always going to be crucial is people to people connections and being able to learn more about each other, understand sort of what you're looking for going forward and what's going to apply to various roles and new businesses that come out of it. I think it'll be interesting because everyone's so sort of bought into the potential capabilities of it. Is I think there's going to be heaps and heaps of new business opportunities, new companies that come out of it, and the amount of innovation that's going to come from it's going to be really, really interesting, and hopefully that can benefit recruiters and everyone in the market.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I'm also really excited about how accessible Gen AI makes kind of all of tech, or a lot more of tech. That it gives them the power for English to become a programming language in a way that like people can interact with it, and if they wanted to write some Python, for example, like you've got a translator from English to Python, and you can start to run things and debug and etc. So I think it does a really great job in making more of technology more accessible, which is something that as organizations. I think we need to do to be able to unlock more innovation and more value across the business. That we're moving from a world where we had a few people with the skills in AI to having now hopefully lots of people that have some skills and accessibility to that. And I'm really excited by that. I think it'll make a huge difference, as you guys have mentioned. So guys, thank you so much. I think it's a brilliant note to end on. This has been an awesome discussion. So I want to thank you both so much. Grant, Jimmy, thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing your experience, your perspectives, your knowledge with us. And I'm looking forward to the world that you have described for us.
Thanks, Felipe. Thanks, Jimmy. It was a great conversation. Really enjoyed it.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for watching this video all the way to the end. I hope that you got a lot out of this discussion. And if you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe to the channel so more people can find out about the challenges that leaders have in the analytics and AI space. And that's what we're trying to share in Data Futurology. So please like and subscribe. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please tell your friends. Thank you so much.